when Lev Mercer, a New York glass tycoon who once sold an algorithm that taught the stock market to sense fear, returned home from a charity ball, his phone exploded with notifications. Not a fireworks display of likes and selfies, but a single letter. "You knew. We can prove it." Attached to the letter was a video from the night desert. His Aquila 7 rocket falling, splitting the darkness like bone. Below, in the orange light of emergency lights, people were running, some screaming, some praying. He felt the blood freeze in his temples. Officially, the launch was supposed to be a test, with no risk to personnel. Officially, this is a setup. He snapped into the phone to his COO. "Tell me it's a setup." "Lev, are you holding on?" "The city already knows. The press is writing about hidden defects. They say you signed the certification without reading the report." His voice was smooth as a blade. "SEC on the line. More, the board voted for a special meeting." The living room was sparkling with the city's reflections. Outside the window, Manhattan looked like a polished legend. He walked past his collection of watches, each ticking in time with the future that always obediently arrived. Today, the future came late and with a knife. "This is revenge. Someone's leaking data," he whispered to his bride. But her gaze was different, as if she was looking not at him but at the price on the screen. "Did you know?" Lev asked. Silence. Only the icy rustle of the dress. He opened the video again. At 0:17, the camera caught a flicker on the case. A small logo of the Texas contractor he had insisted on choosing because of speed. At 0:24, a voice very similar to his said, "Push, time is money." His heart sank to his heels. He didn't remember the words, but he could believe what he was saying. The phone vibrated again. "There's a hearing at the committee tomorrow. Bring the documents. Don't forget your lawyer." He closed his eyes with his fingers, but before him stood not the committee, but the face of his father, an auto mechanic from Brooklyn who had taught him to tighten the nut until it clicked, which meant enough. He realized that he had long since forgotten how to hear that click inside himself. "What if it's me?" he whispered to the dark window. "What if the truth hurts more than the fake?" And the city, which always responded to him with light, was silent this time. The morning was split into red headlines. "The god of the stock exchange is a space traitor. Mercer covered up accidents for a Pentagon contract." Cameras were positioned near the skyscraper, their eyes unblinkingly devouring his name. The air in the boardroom smelled of coffee and ultimatums. "We are suspending you as CEO pending an investigation," the chairman of the board said, as if apologizing for a broken glass. "You are a brand, but the brand is on fire, Leviticus." "I am a company," he snapped, though he was lying to himself. The company had long been other things: fear, speed, the promise of orbit, and the 6 a.m. news. The SEC placed stacks of papers on the table. A reporter from the Herald asked, "Is it true that your satellite array could intercept private calls? Is it true that you collected data for Senator Harrow's campaign?" He felt words turning into sand. In response, official formulas sounded, but each no seemed like a piece of legalized silence. In the evening, his mother came to visit him. She brought an old box of photographs, of his father's dirty fingers in engine oil, the boy Lev with his first calculator, a garage where the numbers smelled of iron. She put the box next to the lawsuits. "Son, you were always running. I was afraid you would run past me," she said. "You're not stupid. You're just alone." But the next day, loneliness became official. The bank froze the accounts. Deals with investors were revised. An influencer friend wrote a pompous post about everyone's path to the truth and went to Miami, and the CFO, Nathan Blake, suddenly disappeared on vacation. A press release from a Texas contractor included the following: all requests for accelerated deadlines were direct instructions from the CEO. His signature under the letter about early certification was like a seal. The galaxy is not what it seems, Lev thought, standing on the roof. Once he had dreamed of a constellation of his satellites that would distribute the internet to deserts and ships. Now those same dots in the sky seemed like eyes of judgment. In the window opposite, he saw his shadow. It had grown and become a stranger. He called his brother Stas, with whom he had rented his first office and first offense. An automated mail answered. Then came a short message: "Don't look for me." Another thread was cut short. By nightfall, a search warrant had arrived in his name. As the detectives were taking out the hard drives, he thought for the first time, maybe all is lost. And it was harder than the headlines. On the third night, as he sat in the empty kitchen, gluing a cracked ear to his cup, an old, forgotten number rang. Lev? It's Yara. Don't answer. Yara had been an intern 5 years ago, quiet, with the kind of eyes that could see through presentations. She'd quit after a fight with Nathan Blake. Now her voice sounded like the rustle of scraped pages. I work for a contractor in Texas. They hid the defective reports in a shadow system. You couldn't see them if you logged in through your CEO's office, she said. But your signature was used, and they attached the document the night before the certification. I know who had access. Blake, 2 others, and Senator Harrow had a private channel through his aide. They were pushing the deadline, and you helped them do it. That's true. But what happened wasn't just your fault. She sent a link to the encrypted archive. The key is the date your father taught you to hear the clicks, she added. Lev smiled for the first time in days. He remembered. June 4th, 1999. The archive blurred before his eyes like a map of sins. Blake's correspondence with the senator's staff, orders to simplify protocols, schemes for transfers through fundraising funds to contractor accounts marked as educational grants. There was also audio, Blake's voice laughing. If he doesn't read the fine print, then the fine print reads him. Why are you helping me? Lev asked. Because I saw you stop the launch last year because of a suspected malfunction, even though it cost millions. Because I hate when the truth is sold in bundles like fake stars, Yara said. But, Lev, you have to do one thing. Not just show their letters, but admit yours. Otherwise, the truth will become another campaign. He sat with his headphones on, listening to the language of money crackle at the joints of the spans. In the silence, another thing surfaced, his father's letter, found in the same box. When the key doesn't fit, don't break the lock. Think about whether that door is yours. Suddenly, the pattern came together. They weren't just forging signatures. They were creating a parallel infrastructure for decision-making, where responsibility was blurred like paint. At the end of the night, he saw the last video, his brother Stas in the parking lot, talking to Harrow's assistant. We'll shut him up, the assistant says. Stas nods. It hit harder than all the headlines. But in that blow, clarity was born. He wouldn't fight for the throne. He would fight for the vote he had lost. And against himself, who betrayed this voice first. The day of the Senate hearing was as cold as a server room. Leo entered without a flash, a simple dark suit, no watch on his hands. The cameras caught every breath. Mr. Mercer, you are here to answer for the Achilles 7 disaster. What will you tell the people? The senator's steely voice tilted like a pendulum. I will tell you the truth that you did not want to hear, he replied. I signed documents, trusting people who dream not of space, but of elections. I accelerated deadlines when I should have slowed down. It is my fault. But I have the records that show the system was deliberately broken so that my irresponsibility would become their business. He turned on the audio with Blake's voice. The hall was noisy. Then, emails, funds flowing like rivers between funds. The video of his brother appeared on the screen. The silence became sharp. Stas, if you're here, come on, Lev said to the empty hall and his former home. The door opened. His brother stood there, pale as a sheet. They told me that silence is maturity. It turns out that silence is a commodity. Today I'm not buying it. They pressed. I betrayed you first, Stas whispered, and it was the needle that did release the poison. He put the correspondence with the senator's assistant on the table. I was afraid that without him they would destroy us. Us. Lev smiled bitterly. We destroyed ourselves long before that. The committee was buzzing. Questions were falling like nuts from an over-tightened thread. Lev was clinging not to the lawyers or the PR people, but to the sentences that smelled of a garage. Click, and that's enough. He said he was resigning, returning his bonuses, funding an independent fund for the families of the victims, opening up all the company's code and internal protocols for review. And most importantly, he would not contest individual charges where he was personally guilty. Do you understand that you will lose everything? Someone shouted from the hall. Everything is not what is in the bank, he replied. Everything is the ability to sleep and hear your own voice. When he left the building, the snow cut his face, and for the first time in many years he did not hide. The cameras plowed the sky, but he walked, and his footsteps sounded like that old click. Enough. Spring came not with excuses, but with work. Lev settled above a workshop in Brooklyn, where he opened the Open Sky Lab, a space for students and mechanics to assemble safe, transparent drones for firefighters and doctors. He lectured on mistakes. He cried sometimes, not in public, but where the grease smelled. Stas came every Saturday to help with the soldering. There were charred scars between them, but at least they stopped trading in silence. The SEC filed its reports. Blake was convicted. Senator Harrow resigned. Lev was fined and banned from running public companies for years. He took it for granted, like a window that had finally been closed. The press asked impudently, was it worth it? He shrugged, asked the Desert family. And that was all. One evening, Yara turned on the projector on the wall of the workshop. In the sky, between two rusty beams, a cloud of satellites was moving slowly, part of his former constellation. They no longer belonged to him, but he suddenly saw in them not goods or data traffic, just lights floating over the city, where people try not to lie to themselves every night. Maybe wealth is not a sum of money, but the freedom to say, I was wrong, and not fall apart, he said aloud. And honesty? Yara asked. Honesty is when you click and stop, even if people around you shout. Push further, Lev answered. I am not a hero. I am a person who has learned that speed without conscience is a fall that is not always immediately visible. He opened the gate and let the guys with the drones out into the night yard. The motors sang like little hearts. He smiled, and the smile didn't hurt. Is it possible to be rich and honest? It is possible, if wealth is not the privilege of lying without consequences, but the duty to be the first to answer. What is more important, truth or success? Success without truth is an empty tank on the highway. You fly for a long time, but the stop is always nearby. Can you buy back the past? No, but you can pay with the present so that the future does not borrow lies. The sky winked with a flicker, and where he once wanted to see his name, only a message remained for those who watch longer than 3 seconds in the tape. Sometimes the most daring flight is the ability to land and admit who is hurting, and to move on, not up, but deep.